Hi, my name is Sean Shaler, and this is Chris Ford, whom you might also know as the Objective Geek from YouTube and Twitter. And welcome to another episode of Avatar: The Last Podcasters. And for the record, I'm going to refer to our episodes by the TV show episode they correspond to, so as not to confuse our one listener. Hi, Mom. And so this episode will actually be called episode number 3 because we are covering the third episode of the show, which aired on February 25th, 2005, just 4 days after the pilot episode. The pilot episode was a Tuesday. This was a Saturday, which seems kind of weird, but whatever. And this show is called the Southern Air Temple. And as a fun fact, that's also my sister's birthday, I believe. If you are interested in such information, I'm not sure why you would be, but she's quite lovely, so get her a birthday present if you see her on that day. And but before we get started, though, I do have a couple notes. First of all, Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Usually when people ask me that question, I say decent because I'm being very realistic with them, and I like to be very genuine with my responses. But I don't think I'm doing good. Life's looking a little brighter.
You make it sound like it's been horrible. Or well, it's
No,
just been
my
average.
decent,
It's been decent.
my
No, that's
decent is
fair.
probably everyone else is good, but I don't like to blow things out of proportion.
That's fair. You like to take things what they are, and that's why we're here, is
I like to be
because we're
very,
such objective
I like to be
critics.
very, dang it, I'll say objective with the.
He said it. He said his name. How appropriate. It's so perfect. Well, anyway, I think most people ask you how you're doing at work, and when you're at work, it definitely skews it because it's at work.
Yes, yeah.
Uh, anyway, it feels like it's like the 10th time that we've recorded this episode because last week we tried it once, and then something was going bad, and then this time we tried. Sorry, we tried it once, and then we tried it again last week. Like we didn't get that far into it. We got through the whole episode, and then I realized that I had done something stupid, and the audio wasn't working at all, really. So it's just like you answering questions being asked by nobody. It's just you talking to yourself and then my mouth moving. So it's kind of awkward. So it's only the second time, actually. I did retest some different audio options on YouTube, and a YouTube rebuttal to your ludicrously generous review of Ready Player One. I did my own review, mostly to test out the audio here. But for the record, your 7.8 score on Ready Player One is way too high. I gave it a 7.65. I think
Sorry.
that is precisely more accurate, my humble opinion.
Yeah, I guess I could have come down a little bit on story, and because I think I gave it an 8. Honestly, I probably could come down to 7.5, but even then, that would only probably bring it down about zero point 0.1
Point one,
points.
point two. Well, that's about where I was at, right? So it's perfect. Anyway, Ready Player One, totally
Yeah.
fine as a movie. Hopefully the audio is working. There's still some popping and stuff like that, but it didn't seem too bad. The other thing that I learned is that your telephone, like your cell phone, and even my wife's cell phone, both have far better cameras than my Logitech C920 webcam that I used to record this. It's very embarrassing. I thought about grabbing her phone to record it, and that felt silly too. And I was like, "That's what you do here." So it's also worth noting that I am standing up because with my audio changes, I'm a little closer to my computer than I used to be. But then I tried it, and it made my voice sound lower. So I'm pretty excited about that. Maybe my voice won't sound like 2 octaves higher than yours, like it did last time. That's very exciting. And then the final note is that we have actual real life listeners. They're actual people. It's not YouTube comments or thumbs up or anything like that. It is actual people from my work who listen to it. And they didn't ever say they liked it, but they implied that they listened to it, and they never said that they hated it. So that was cool. They did say we were too mean to Sokka. But they were also looking forward to this episode and that we should be nicer to Sokka. So thank you, Hannah and Tyler, who are also getting married too. That's probably too much information for a weird podcast. But I imagine that our podcast is going to.
Congrats.
Congrats, Hannah and Tyler. It's been tremendous to receive compliments and critiques from both of you. And I believe that our podcast is going to hold your marriage together for like 2 or 3 years as we finish these episodes.
At
So
least, yeah.
at least 2 or
They're
3
on their
years.
own after that.
And then we'll go to Korra, and then you'll rewatch it. You got 10 years of bonding just over this low grade podcast. So you're very welcome. And so with that, I was going to go to a section that I think we should call Chris Cleanup, which is where you, being the subject matter, after you watch what we did last time, You get to point out all the stupid stuff that we said or didn't said or we messed up. It mostly could be your critique of the bad things that I said, and that's fine. But we're going to call this the Chris cleanup.
I think in the last episode, when we covered the pilot, you mentioned that Aang. What was it? There's something about the Avatar state. Oh no, I got it. The ship was damaged, right? Zuko's ship was damaged in the last episode.
From the ice
Aang
falling
wasn't
on
in
it.
the Avatar. Yeah, Aang wasn't in the Avatar. He didn't do that in the Avatar state. The thing he did in the Avatar state was like twirl up in the water and then hit people off the ship. When he did that to the ship, when Zuko and Iroh combined to throw a big old fireball at him, and then he swung it, no Avatar state, like a baseball, hit the side of the cliff, and then the snow from that damaged the ship. So that's one thing.
But can you confirm that he was in the Avatar state so my complaints later in this episode are valid?
Oh, well, he did enter the Avatar state, but when he took out the ship, he was not in the Avatar
Just not
state.
in the ship. All right, so my complaint later is still valid. That's good. That becomes important if you make it through this whole episode. And you know, I did say some other stupid stuff, but I was able to edit them out later. So no harm, no foul. And then the other thing that is extremely unimportant, but sometime I'll get right, is so last week I started the show off with a terrible allegory between real life, between our real life and the intro sequence to Avatar: The Last Airbender. And well, it was weird and awkward, so I was going to record that again, and I made Heather I was going to have her record it for real and make an intro sequence for our show, but she has such a soft voice that I'm like telling her, like, you got to like just yell into the microphone, and then it was bad, and the microphone was bad, and the audio was bad, but she tried really hard, and she seems like she's willing to try again. And her voice doesn't sound anything like Katara's, but it sounds more like Katara's than mine was. So
it's a soft, womanly voice.
It is, right. So my heart was in a place where I wanted to have not a cool intro sequence, but a ridiculous one with actual voicing and stuff. And it didn't work, but I'll get it to work sometime. Maybe that's not really a cleanup. That's my teaser for next episode. That's an exciting teaser.
Nice.
Oh, hey, look, I gave you Monk GYATSO, or the other monks for the Chris cleanup section. I forgot to click there. So there's the other monks. And then, so Chris, this week I thought I would start by giving a real quick synopsis of the last episode and this episode. And then we will go into the scene by scene stuff from this episode, which you will lead. That sound all right?
Sounds good.
So last week we talked about the pilot. It's been 2 weeks ago now. It was comprised of 2 episodes. Katara and Sokka of the Southern Water Tribe stumble on Aang, this boy who's frozen in a block of ice, in a sphere of ice specifically. They bring him back to their village, and there's a lot of exposition. They start to realize that he's probably the last Airbender. And then we also meet Zuko and Uncle Iroh, and they are from the aggressing Fire Nation, and they've been tasked with finding the Avatar. And all we really know about the Avatar at this point is that it's some kind of very powerful, unique individual who may not even be alive. We're not sure. The last time he was present was more than 100 years ago, but many people believe he's still out there and that he's going to return and restore peace. So naturally, Fire Nation people aren't down with that. So Aang and Katara set off a booby trap in an old Fire Navy ship. Big explosion happens. Zuko and Iroh see it. They show up at the village where Sokka and Katara are there with their other villagers. And Aang gives himself up to them. And then there's a crazy escape scene where Aang escapes his captors. He escapes the Fire Nation. And then Sokka and Katara kind of get their grandma's blessing to go on with him. Well, first of all, to rescue him, and then to go on with him on his mission to restore peace. So that brings us up to this episode. And the thing about this episode is it's split into 2 stories. One side, we have our protagonists, and I won't give away anything because I want to do that in the scene by scene. But they fly a bison to the Southern Air Temple, where they find out a lot of truths about Aang and the Airbenders and the Avatars and the Avatar state. A lot of things start to reveal themselves. And then on the other side, Zuko and Iroh make port at a Fire Nation-controlled harbor to have their ship fixed, which was broken by Aang's baseball swing. And they meet some Fire Nation jerk named Commander ZHAO, and he finds out they spotted the Avatar, and he demands they turn the mission over to him. So still more exposition, but it's a little deeper exposition this episode. And then you'll also notice that I use the word revelation. That's kind of a theme in this episode, is that a lot of stuff is starting to reveal itself on kind of a deeper level. It's more than exhibition. It's not a standard story yet. So with that, Chris, I'm going to turn it over to you to take us through scene by scene.
All right. One thing I want to get into first. Sorry to derail you here,
Sure.
but something I've been thinking about and just chewing on in my mind is that in the last episode we talked a lot about how Aang is he's the Jesus Christ figure, and Katara has a lot of faith and hope, and then also Aang gives Zuko hope. Um,
It's a
and
weird,
that's I
different kind
think
of hope,
that's
but yeah, it's hope.
yeah. Um, and I think that's almost the the theme of season one. So you know how in Korra's books aren't, except for the first season is named after Air, but for the most part, most of those books are named after the theme. It's balance, change, spirits. So if I had to really describe a theme for this season, it would be something like hope or faith, because a lot of it, people are reconciling their faith. They're reconciling the what the world is now, and but then Aang comes back, so now there's hope that things will go back and be better. Um, and so I just see that a lot throughout. At the end of the season, there's a lot about messing with the spirits and having faith in them and everything. Um, so it's just really interesting that that a kids show is the first season of it is really all about religion and a certain aspect of it.
Right, it's a very unique religion. It's kind of its own thing. I always hated that it was the three books are was it water, earth, and fire, and I get that they're
Yes.
sort of corresponding with the location that in which they're taking place the most, or something like, or maybe it just was
Yeah.
arbitrary. Maybe
It's
they just picked.
it's,
But there's
it's where
four.
Aang is training.
There's four elements, and there's only three books, and that drives me insane. So I always hated that. So I always liked the naming of the Korra books better. So yeah, if you had to pick one for this, hope or faith, there is kind of a lot of not well come to Jesus moments, but come to Aang moments, if you will, where he's starting to reveal himself to the world and gives people hope. And even the
Hmm.
other, it gives the opposition hope as well. So yeah, I like that. That's an excellent name for this series, and I always hated the fact that it was called Book One, Water. Personal
Well, I
opinion.
got it. It
No,
was
no
it was
meat
named
behind it.
after what element he was learning that season. But
It makes sense. It bores me though. Cora's naming conventions are better.
yeah, and
And
also
that,
Korra. Never
yeah,
mind. We won't get into Korra.
got a long ways to
But
go.
so this scene,
I haven't
this
even
are
been able to afford
yeah.
those DVDs yet. Got to give me some time.
Uh, so this is our first meet with Commander Zhao, the second antagonist to the show. Incidentally enough, right before this, like he gets promoted three times in a span of like 3 months.
And
Yeah,
that's
because it's like a
after he
season. It's
gets
like three
beat
months.
up by a kid, which, spoiler alert, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But that's after he gets beat up by Zuko, and he's clearly not very good at his job, and he's still getting promoted. So I don't know where he works, but I'm interested.
Yeah.
I can
I
send a
know
resume.
my career trajectory was not that great.
No, mine will never
Yeah,
be.
he's the captain before this. Now he's the admiral, and then I think he's commander. Then he becomes admiral. Admiral Zhao, Commander Zhao, Admiral, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know
I don't
army
remember which is
rankings
which, but
or
he's one of
fictional
those
army
two,
rankings.
and then he's the other one, and then later on he gets
Yeah,
something
yeah.
else.
I think
He
he
gets
become if
promoted
he's
too many
commander
times.
right now, he becomes admiral later.
Maybe his dad is like higher up in the Fire Nation. He's got some say or something. I don't know how that
Maybe.
works.
But the thing that that I want to highlight with this scene is that in the previous episode, our only antagonist is Zuko, and he is pretty much shown as just being kind of pure evil in that first episode. I mean, it's the pilot; it's what you have to do. But then when you have a character who is the antagonist, who's a bad guy, and then you have a character who's worse than him, that makes Zuko seem more relatable and you root for him more. Like, all right, I'm gonna just choose the lesser of these two evils here, and I'm gonna root with Zuko. And they paint that picture like they don't paint Admiral Zhao in any type of good light here.
So one thing that the two people from work that actually watched this, and they brought up, and why I was actually appreciative, and they didn't just come up and say, "Hey, thanks, we liked it," but they actually had some commentary. And one thing that we talked about a little bit is that Zuko and Iroh, even at this point, you can already tell that they've got some depth as villains for a TV show or a cartoon kids show villains. They actually do have some depth, and it does start in this episode where you start to see and feel Zuko as a real human. Where honestly, you can look at all the other villains in the show, and I mean, there's depth there, and we'll get to that when those episodes come along. And it's been too long since I watched them to comment too much. But Zuko definitely is the most relatable and the most human feeling. He gets more development, more uh, true human depth. I guess I'm not sure how to describe it, but he definitely feels the most real of any villain you meet in this show. I think him and Iroh.
Yeah. And then speaking of Iroh, there's a quick little comedy thrown in here. I mean, they do a good job of
Right
balancing that
away
throughout
there.
the whole series.
That's
Where Zhao's asking them what happened to your ship because they're at the shipyard and the ship needs a bunch of repairs. And then Zuko's just like he's having a hard time come up with it. And he's just like, Uncle, tell him what happened. And
right,
then,
because they are
and
not
then Iroh's
prepared to
like,
share. They're not prepared to share it at all, right? And so, but
yeah,
you already get the feeling that Zhao is very suspicious, but maybe Zhao's also just a jerk. We're not positive yet. It's
yeah.
very early. He might just be a jerk though. So the next scene then flips to the other half of the story.
Yeah, so this episode really flips back and forth all throughout this episode. And here we have, our group, our team Avatar, as it will become to be called. So Sokka, Katara, and Aang are on the way to the Southern Air Temple, where Aang is really anxious because he still believes that that the Airbenders aren't gone. And he thinks that because hey, you need a Sky Bison to get here. Um, and no one Fire Nation doesn't have Sky Bison, which I find that logic a little bit faulty because there are dragons, and maybe the dragons are able to get up there. And
But
Aang
is it
knows that there
possible
are
that
dragons.
so Aang? I mean, Aang's a kid, right? So he's going to hyperbolize, and then maybe he's heard of dragons and teachings and stuff. But if he doesn't have a real tangible connection in his mind, that might just be, this is a parable or a fairy tale or something
Yeah,
similar. He's a kid. He hyperbolizes.
yeah. Oh, and then Katara is trying to get him to slowly to get him with the to the realization of the disappointment that you need to be prepared that all your loved ones, your own culture, has been completely wiped from this world.
And it does take place slowly over the entire episode, and it culminates very nicely, and it definitely becomes the most important part of the entire episode. That sort of culmination and realization in Aang's mind. And then, of course, just when you get to this new air temple and it's new and exciting and pretty, and you haven't seen anything like it, you flip back to the other story.
Yeah, yeah, and here, I mean, like you have there, Zhao is just questioning Zuko on everything. Then at this point, I mean, there you can definitely see some combativeness between the two. At this point, I believe that Zhao finds out that Zuko had the Avatar. That's kind of I feel like that's the only main thing they addressed.
Yeah, they talked just a little bit about the war, and then at the end of it, at the end of this segment, I believe, is when the crew comes in and says they've investigated
Hmm.
interrogated the crew from the ship and found out they saw the Avatar. I think that happens all at the end of this scene and up to this point, and
Yeah. Also,
it's a common piece with this whole side of the storyline, and it is not as exciting a storyline to me. It's kind of a distraction from the rest of the episode. Is because that this side of the storyline is almost all dialogue. Most of it's in a red room on a
mhm.
red ship, and it's a lot of dialogue. So sometimes it feels like a distraction.
Yeah. Um, Also, they continue to do exposition in this episode like they did in the last one. I think they do it even better in this episode, and I thought they did great in the last one. These are really normal conversation for these characters to be having. Right when Zhao is talking to Zuko, he's saying we're nearing victory in the war. And Zuko, who clearly, I mean, Zuko just out loud states, "If my father thinks that the world will bend over bow for him, then he is a fool." And then I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, there, Zuko!"
Kid's got
Like
some
just
like
calling,
teen toot going on.
got
He's
some moxie.
little rebellious towards mom and dad right now. You'll grow out of it,
Yeah,
kid.
yeah. And then we subtly learn from Zhao that Zhao then says 2 years at sea hasn't calmed your I forget the exact words.
Calmed your temper, quelled your temper,
Yeah,
something like that.
quailed. He said quailed, something. Calmed your temper. essentially. So now, with that piece of information, we know that Zuko has been at sea looking for the Avatar for 2 years.
And that he has a renowned case of Tood. Good old teenage Tood. All right, so then it flips back to the temple, and this isn't really a full scene so much as it's kind of a single or a handful of frames of animation where Aang just comments on how barren the temple is.
Yeah, Aang is just he's slowly coming to grips with it. Like he says, "Gosh, this place used to be filled with such joy and greenery and stuff, and now it's just a wasteland with tumbleweeds." And I think this scene here is shown to really to be a contrast to the flashbacks coming up.
Yeah, because the flashback, and I mean, we just get one still of it, so I probably didn't do a great job of grabbing one scene. But everything is just, I mean, it's green and alive, and just like you would picture most like happy cartoon protagonist cities, or like the city in an RPG, the main city where everybody's happy and there's so much greenery and life there. So yeah, I agree completely. Hopefully, I don't remember which screenshot I captured of that, but hopefully it represents that in some way. This isn't really a scene so much as that last time we had a clip of Sokka falling into some snow or falling off. I think he's fallen off of the ramp up to the ship. And then in this scene here, I just liked it because he's fallen off of stuff again. So I decided I'm going to try to capture every single time that happens. So right now we're at 2. There's 60 some odd episodes. That puts the over under. We've got 2 and 3 episodes. Somewhere in the realm of 30. I think he's going to exceed 30 falls. I'm going to try to capture every one of them. We'll take a count at the end.
Yeah, I'm gonna go under on that one.
Under 30. All right, I'll take 31 up. You can have 29 and over, and Charlie, my dog, he can have the exact 30. He was the Vegas odds maker in this case. So then we get to the actual crux of the scene here.
Yeah, so next scene is that the crew, the Aang and Katara and Sokka are just exploring the air temple, and Katara comes across a Fire Nation helmet. Clearly, there might have been some friendly fire there because it is burnt. Airbenders do
yeah,
not
he might
burn
have picked.
people.
Yeah,
Although technically
somebody batted
could,
fire
maybe.
back at him. Maybe like did the same
Some
angle.
friendly fire.
That's a common technique. Is the baseball fire swing.
Yeah, or maybe an Airbender like pushed the air back at him.
Yeah, could have been less fun than a baseball bat. Whatever.
But so at first, Katara calls over Aang, and then she completely just goes away from that plan, and she covers it all up with snow. I mean, that just continues to show Katara just trying to care for Aang and protect him, even when in this case it's probably not that great to protect him. Like you're just delaying the inevitable.
A very painful inevitable. I think it's worth noting too that pretty confident that she's the one that calls him over to see the fire helmet in the first place, and then she changes her mind. I'm pretty confident. I don't think it's Sokka that does it, and then she covers it up. She's still fighting her own mental battle, and I think that's kind of an important piece of her character and the type of friend she's still trying to figure out how to be for Aang. So then we get to the flashback.
Yes, this is our first flashback, and we meet Monk Gyatso, which is Aang's. At this point, you don't really know his guardian. Actually, I don't think any of them really have guardians. But I feel like Monk Gyatso is his guardian. That's never really confirmed.
Maybe
but he
his
loves
mentor.
Monk Gyatso.
There's probably a good word for it. Mentor sounds okay. And then, sorry, I should have led into this better. Basically, so they wander into the temple after Katara covers the helmet up with snow, and they wander into the temple, and they see the statue of Monk Gyatso.
Yeah, then he has a flashback about it, and in this flashback, Aang is dealing with kind of just learning he's the Avatar, and he's like, isn't there a mistake or something? And Monk Gyatso says, no, the only mistake was telling you before your 16th birthday. So now we learn that
impression was
all right,
dead
Aang really.
on. I want to pull
It felt
YouTube
great.
video just to. No, you killed it. I wish I had a clip right here just to like. All right, close your eyes. Who said this? I think he had background music in his. It'd probably be giveaway.
Yeah, dead giveaway. But then you get to also learn. So you learn that Aang is probably too immature to really know this, and he's not necessarily ready or excited for the responsibility of being the Avatar. Also, you get to learn where Aang gets his cheekiness from, and because as they're baking these pies, they toss them at a bunch of air nomads,
Yeah, they
and these
get
are like master air nomads. They all got arrows on them.
they right. These are not rookies. They all look like they're 100 years old. And Aang just gets done having this really deep conversation with Monk Gyatso about, I mean, about his future, his life as the Avatar. And then Gyatso's like, all right, let's, I mean, he doesn't say it. He's like, you're going to help me with these pies? And you're like, they're going to eat those pies? And then they just throw them on some other monks. Like, eating a whole pie is probably irresponsible enough by itself for an air nomad. I imagine you need to be lighter to fly better. I don't know. Maybe that's not true. So you
Yeah.
get it. I don't know.
Also,
It takes a couple of steps till you realize, like, no, he's pretty silly, and that's probably where Aang gets some of his goofiness for sure.
yeah, and also we touched on it before, is that in these temples in the Air Nation, they don't have traditional families, which is why I was saying that Monk Gyatso, I believe, is his guardian or his mentor. They're all separated into they separate the genders, so um, all the males and the boys, they go to the southern and the northern air temples, while all the ladies and girls go to the western and eastern air temples.
I still want to
And
know how those long distance relationships work without social media, without cell phones. Is there a
well, I don't
courier
think they have
service?
relationships. I mean, as we learned earlier, like yeah, I don't think they. Well, wait, they do have relationships. Now I think about
They had to have
it, which
relationships
is
because
something that.
men and women had to have relationships to have. So what you're getting at here, something we touched on, and the thing that I had to delete because the audio was terrible, was that
Yeah,
they're very open. I'll let you take this part, but the point is, yeah, they have to have like male, female. Like there's got to be cross temple relationships happening for kids to be born, for young air nomads to be born.
yeah. There are definitely relationships, and there are, as we talked about before. There's also same sex relationships, which I guess that would happen on an island full of men. I mean, not for me, but, but
But you can see how it would spawn. I get it. I've seen movies
uh,
about prison. I know how it works.
I've watched Oz at like the age of 12. Don't know why, but I love that show.
I was gonna go with Shawshank. The part that is
That's you.
strange is both how it happens and then the fact that when it happens, somebody apparently your baby just gets taken away. It's like, all right, well, he's a dude, so we're gonna put him over
Yeah.
here. It's a little.
Well, and I
I would
think
say
part of
that
that is
qualifies
that,
as non-traditional.
and I think part of that is that, as Airbender theology is part of it is detach yourself from worldly attachments, which we're going to learn that really well in future episodes of Korra, and also episodes of towards the second season finale with Monk with the Guru Batik. Um,
And I'm glad we're having this talk
that
now because the first time I watched that episode, the same thing did not register as what registered the last time we tried to record this episode that we'll get to at the end where we start talking about Katara. I'm glad you brought that up. So next time I see that episode, I'll be different mental
mm,
place.
yeah. Oh crap! I forgot the point I was trying to trying to give. That you can only reach true spiritual enlightenment when you detach yourself from all worldly attachments. So I think that's maybe why they kind of split families apart. Like they don't mind having that love with one another, but then it's like, need some distance.
Something to be said too for they seem like a very loving, peaceful people, and you'd like to wonder if part of that message there is more like think less about separating the families and more about you're going to learn to live with and love everybody as a family in this
Yeah,
group in this colony that you're with. So yeah, you can put
yeah,
a positive spin on it, I think.
yeah. One of the more interesting things is that like they are nomads. Like they travel the world, and they do, I think, leave their seeds all across the world. There's um,
Sorry, I'm not mature enough for this kind of conversation.
yeah. um, so there's like some fan theories out there on just how like how maybe Aang isn't the last Airbender. I mean, they're not right, but there's some theories out there. And then you get into Korra, and also have some theories there.
Maybe
Um,
he might be the last Airbender, but maybe he's not the last in any given line of Airbenders as far as
yeah,
like
like with like there's
because
something genetically maybe that keeps that goes outside of Aang, goes to other people.
the filthy
But yeah,
sailors going from,
yes, yeah,
going from temple to temple.
yeah, pretty much.
See, this makes me
Um,
want to jump ahead to Korra, where it just feels like it'll be more appropriate to talk about like just more
yeah,
adult themes and stuff. Whereas here, it all feels like it's so far ahead of where we're at right now in this episode, where we're still meeting this first Airbender,
yeah.
and we've already gone into like the reproductive cycles of all Airbenders and genetics and stuff. So, getting me excited for
All
Korra.
right, yeah,
Uh, all right, well, that was a good scene, good flashback. So
yeah.
that
We
gets
talked a lot
us
about.
back to the other story here, which we believe at this point that ZHAO knows that Zuko has found the Airbender, and so he's
Hmm.
got them both in the war room for a little interrogation.
Yes, we learn a lot about Zuko in this flashback. Um, so Zuko, Zhao's pretty much telling Zuko, "Listen, I'm not gonna leave this to a kid. Like you're just you couldn't even handle him before. I'm taking over. You just get out of my way, pretty much." And Zuko's pretty much like, "No, I've been hunting the Avatar for like 3 years now. I'm not gonna end this." And then they kind of get into a heated scuffle. Um, I forget what Zhao says to set Zuko off. Um, oh, he says he's talking about how much of a failure Zuko is. He was like, "Your own father doesn't even want you. He your own father doesn't even want you, and you have the scar to prove it." So then we learn, oh, something happened. Like that scar isn't like a birth defect or anything. Like he got that scar from some type of firebending. But then Zuko says, "How would you like one to match Agni Kai?" And they pretty much then you learn what Agni Kai is. It's like a fire duel. And then Iroh tells Zuko, don't you sure you want to do this? Like, don't you remember what happened last time that you challenged the master in the Agni Kai? And then the camera's on Zuko on his good side, and then it kind of pans over to like, "I will never forget." And then it's just to the camera. So that moment, whatever it was, we don't know what it is yet. We know he was challenged by an Agni Kai at some point. That moment has such a huge impact on his life, like that completely changed his trajectory for life. Um,
I think
but he's
based
still
on the
willing to have another Agni
statements,
Kai.
I think based on the statements, you can probably infer that it was his dad too, because Zhao mentioned something. It's pretty clear about like you get the scar to prove it. Your own father doesn't want you to get the scar. Like it's pretty clear, and so you're like, all right, he probably picked a fight with his dad, and apparently he lost. And also, Zhao is like resorting to like very childish tactics here, and so I think this is the first point, or at least it's a turning point in my mind where I was like, all right, I know he's a jerk, but I really hope that Zuko punches him or something. Like this, it just turned a page for him. He's being a child. He's acting like a child talking to another child. But otherwise, the
Yeah,
scene is kind of
like I
boring
said,
because it's mostly just dialogue. And even when they say Agni Kai, it's not like Dragon Ball Z music pops up or anything like that. They're just like Agni Kai, and then that's it. And then we cut back to the other story. So it's not the most exciting scene.
uh, yeah, I did love a great Iroh scene in this. So when Zuko gets pissed off, he throws the table with the tea on it and everything, and then Iroh just goes, "More tea, please." Like just a just essential
Just
Iroh
chill.
fashion.
Just chill.
Yeah, like none of this throws him at all, which I think is almost because he's just like, I am like, you guys are having like a pissing contest right now, but anyway, I'm not. I don't. Anyway,
Is he that chill
but I'm.
because he drinks tea all the time? Like, is it a cycle? He's
It's probably just the tea thing.
drinking
He just
lavenders and
wants more
green teas,
tea.
so he's just in a
He's
good
probably,
mental state all the time.
yeah, he's probably really chill now because it's like this tea right now is the most important thing. I'll help you out, Zuko, later, but I just want some more tea,
This is going to
please.
chill me out right now. I would like to point out I've been drinking tea at work, so I don't want to drink too much coffee because I don't even like coffee. But I also have gained a bunch of weight and still from last winter. I keep saying last winter. Winter is like 8 months gone or something crazy. It's like I gained a bunch of weight, so I've been trying to drink no calorie drinks. So I've been drinking hot tea. It's July. It's mid July or almost August, and I'm drinking hot tea at work, which is ludicrous. But then as I'm doing it, I'm like, I can see why Iro gets into this. It's very nice. It's very
Mm.
calming.
Yeah, I don't drink tea. And, I'm pretty sure I told you before. I'm trying to get through life without drinking coffee. But
I think you can totally do without the coffee, and no harm, no foul there. But you ought to try good lavender tea before you go to bed sometime. If you have trouble sleeping, good
mm,
lavender tea
I
knocks me
don't. I'm
out.
great at sleeping.
It's one of your many talents, sleeping.
And I've gotten better at it too as I've gotten older.
I think once
Like
you
I
have
can,
children, you have to get better at sleeping, or you won't get to sleep ever. Actually, I think that's a
yeah.
rule. So anyway, we cut
All
away
right.
from
So the
all
next
the
thing,
all the not terribly exciting dialogue, and then we get to like my favorite scene in the first several episodes.
yes,
Not quite, but close.
we learn a lot about just the Avatar. And when I was watching this episode, um, I think I maybe barely watched the first episode a little bit, but I didn't catch a lot of it. This is really, I just knew Avatar is something, lottie dottie, whatever. But this was the first episode that I really watched. And so this scene here, it really helps explain to me what the Avatar is, and that, oh, it's one person, one kind of spirit who's born into all the different nations, and there has been thousands of avatars.
And just seeing all the statues there, and even now you can't see them as well as you can later. But like just in this screenshot here, you're looking at one, two, three, four, five, 6 rows with who knows how many. So it's like you kind of get
Yeah.
a pretty good idea at that point if you're thinking about it. Like this has been forever. This is not a recent thing where one guy was like born a mutant. This is an eternal kind of cycle. At least it feels that way. So very revealing, very early. But then we get scared so we're still in the temple, and the doors are open, and they are approached by apparently an enemy.
Oh yeah, this is our first meet with Momo. Also to note, Sokka is really hungry in this
Good
episode.
call out. That becomes a very important
Yeah.
plot point in the next
Yeah,
minute or
and it kind
so.
of becomes a weak plot point. Uh, like it's kind of the plot, the confrontation in this side of the story is just Aang wanting to befriend Momo as he sees him, and Sokka wanting to eat Momo. And that confrontation really isn't. That story is really weak.
This
It's
whole
really just to
yeah,
get us to another location that sets off Aang in a certain way. Like
Ye-
especially compared to the other story, while there's real confrontation between ZHAO and ZUKO, this side one here seems to be really the real confrontation is Aang versus himself and versus reality.
yeah, but the other story doesn't have a monkey, and that's negative points in my book. But anyway,
Mm.
so Momo comes in. They think he's Fire Nation at first because of the pointiness on him, and it turns out he's a monkey. And then Sokka runs off after him and wants to eat him. And then it flips right back to the actual Agni Kai challenge. I don't think it. Correct me if I'm wrong here. I don't believe that in this scene it's actually happening. I think in this scene they're both just outside getting prepped, ripping their shirts off and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's starting.
We get into the first sequence of
Uh,
actions here. I think that
Actually,
I think they're
I
just
think
outside prepping.
I
I
think they
think
do
Iroh's
start.
giving Zuko the talk. Do they start the
Yeah.
fighting here before we cut to the other
Um,
scene?
I
That's
think they might start to fight like in the show right after this because I think they have the huge like here's his face, here's his face, and then it kind of just cuts into some like action happening. I believe that's how it happens.
it is a
I'm
testament to this
71%
episode
sure.
being very jarring, but we'll talk about it a little more later too. The everything from the color palettes to the depth and quality of the stories going on is just very jarring. It's not confusing. It's easy to keep the stories separate and to remember what's going on, but it just feels like it's constantly back and forth, and that's not my favorite. It's okay. It's not my favorite. So anyway, we get started on the Agni Kai challenge. They're both outside looking. They're both completely ripped and shirtless because you got to be that way when you fight somebody.
And then as Aang and Sokka are chasing Momo, and finally comes across Monk Gyatso's skeleton, and and the thing I realized about seeing is that I think I forgot his name, Zachary Tyler, I think is his name,
I
the
don't
voice actor
remember.
of Aang. You wouldn't, yeah, you wouldn't know. Granted, I only know a
Avatar
few of
burn.
them. Yeah, you wouldn't. Um,
You don't even know who Zach Tyler is.
I think, yeah. I wonder what he's up to now. Sometimes I go back and I Google, like I think I recently looked it up a couple of days ago, and he's not doing nothing. But
I can
hey, he voiced
guarantee that I've
Aang, and
Googled my own name far more times than I've ever Googled Zach Tyler's name.
I never Google my name
You should try it sometime.
at all.
Especially, no offense, you have kind of a common name. I mean, there's no offense need to be taken. You have a
No,
common name.
that's why I don't Google it.
You're gonna find some amazing Chris Fords out there. You're gonna be astounded.
Back to I interrupted myself, went through a huge little tangent there. So Aang finds Mongyas's skeletal remains,
Momo
and
leads them to this skeleton, to his room.
yeah. Oh, dang it. Okay,
Momo the plot point.
I got to get back to a point that I was remembering. Okay. So in this moment, Aang sort of starts to cry. You can hear it very subtly in the voice actor's voice. Like it's sort of just like an emotional cry, and then he kind of gets pissed. I'm gonna jump right back to this side point that I was thinking of before we get really into this because it's an important scene. But this side thing I'm gonna say isn't important at all. So when they were originally thinking about like Momo's character, I believe the first sketch of Momo is actually of him as a monkey, he is a monkey, as a robot
He's a robo
monkey-ish
monkey,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah. And then there was also Naga, which is Korra's kind of spirit animal. He was with Aang, and then they scratched that, put in Appa. That was a good decision. And then they turned Momo into an actual monkey. And at first, they were going to have Monk Gyatso's spirit be reincarnated into Momo.
Sounds amazing. That sounds like a missed opportunity
Um,
right there. And
I
they're
mean,
like,
I'm
oh wait,
fine
he's a
either
plot
way,
point
I
that
guess.
Sokka is gonna eat him, so maybe that's not a great idea.
Yeah, but it's interesting that Momo led them to Monk Gyatso.
A nice toss in. I feel like I've seen the sketch of Momo as a robot monkey before because it was
Mhm.
it's kind of steampunkish in a way that later on in
Yes.
the series we do get to some kind of steampunkish technology. I want to say maybe mid book two, late book two, early book three, we start to see some more of that going on. Okay, yeah, so they stumble on
Then Aang gets pissed off, goes into the Avatar state. Sokka cannot console him at all, even though Sokka says, "Hey, I wasn't really gonna eat him." One thing, I think Sokka is lying. Like
he was definitely going to eat
Sokka
that
did not waste
monkey.
all that energy. Yeah. It's like, you know what? He found his dead father's bones. I really shouldn't eat his monkey friend
We'll
right
pick this up later. His monkey friend that maybe was supposed to be
now.
the reincarnation of his
Yeah.
dead friend that's sitting in front of us. Yeah, that good choice,
This-
Sokka. Waited. That's the first time that maybe Sokka has showed some restraint. Good job, buddy. See, we were
Sounds
nice to
like I
Sokka.
think
Check that off the
Sokka.
list.
Yeah. I think Sokka and Momo, they have a lot of great moments together. And that's the thing about Sokka, like Sokka grows on everyone, I think. Or everyone grows on Sokka.
Maybe both. Yeah, probably both. He
Yeah.
definitely I can't remember if this is something we said in the original episode that I published or the one that wasn't publishable. But by the time we get to the episode with Sparky Boom Man, by the time we get to that point, I feel like that in my mind, that's sort of it's not a turning point for Sokka, but that's where I realize, like, you know what, Sokka really has been growing on me. He's slowly become one of my favorite characters, but it does take a long time. There's a good
That's
chunk
what
of
it
these
takes. Gosh, yeah, you don't like Sokka. If it took you that long.
because he's still kind of a little
It took you till
overly.
season 3.
He's still pretty overly machismo through most, even through season three. He's got some character things that don't mesh well with me. But at that point, it was like that first time watching through, and I realized, you know what? Actually, he has been growing on me this time. It's just at that point that you realize you're laughing, you're kind of connecting, sharing a moment when he's about to be shot down by some guy with a laser shooting forehead, and you start to connect with him right there. Or realize that you have been connecting with him, or maybe that's just me. So we go to the Avatar state, which you mentioned, and I just grabbed that whole scene, that whole video scene here because it's really cool.
Oh, yes. It's a great scene.
Yes, it is. It's fantastic. This is the first time we truly see the Avatar state. Oh, this is amazing. All the eyes light up in the whole circle. And this is when you realize how long this has been going on.
Yeah.
Sorry, my TV's over here. I'm not like just falling asleep. This is
Yeah,
the part
and
that
then,
we will touch
and then
on
in the
in a
scene,
moment that bothers me. So all these elders from the other nations are being alerted that the Avatar is entering the Avatar state by their various statues glowing or whatever. They're all seeing this, and it's very important because it's sort of Avatar's announcement to the world that he exists. But the issue that I have, and we talked about it last time a little bit, is that he already kind of went into the Avatar state in the second episode, where he spirals out of the water and essentially saves himself from dying. So there is some difference in there. Maybe it's implied, or maybe it's just sweep it under the rug and don't talk about it. But like he already went into the Avatar state once, but this is the first time when he goes into it that like the whole world is alerted. So it's like maybe last time he just like got 1,000 power level 1,000 Avatar, but this time his power level is over 9,000 over here. It's the first official Avatar state. So amazing scene, but it does raise that question for me of why the first time it wasn't recognized. Maybe it's just too quick. Signal didn't mesh up.
Yeah, it definitely is like a plot hole that the other statues didn't light up the first time he went to Avatar State. I mean, the only like actual end story reason I would have for it is that maybe this one is more of an emotional Avatar State. The other one was a self-defense mechanism Avatar State, but that's kind of faulty logic.
It might be faulty logic. It's something I would say there's probably something to do. Like last time, it really was self-defense. He just kind of spiraled out of the water, and then it was kind of done.
Yeah.
It was very quick. So like this time,
Yeah.
maybe there really is not certain levels, but just truly is a full-on
maybe
Avatar state
just-
versus just sort of an Avatar power of self-defense in the first one case. Maybe not great logic. It's cartoon logic, though. I'll buy that.
I mean, story-wise and just episode structure-wise, I like it better because it makes for this great moment, as we see. And also, just a lot of stuff happened in those first couple episodes that I think it was good to save it for this episode. But yeah, this Avatar state was definitely stronger, and it was held much, much longer. Like, Aang is pretty much stuck in the Avatar state.
Right, there's a sort of element of control lost, just naturally, not in a self-defense way, like just him letting himself go. So there's probably something there, but it really is important because I mean, obviously, you see the length of time the Avatar has been, but then also there's these other. I don't know what to call them. I'm going to call them like religious leaders or religious figureheads.
Well,
of
in the
these other
Fire Nation, those
nations.
are the Fire Sages.
And so, right, some sort of I guess philosophical figureheads of these individual nations that are the first to learn, outside of ZUKO, of course, ZUKO and the crew, that the Avatar is back, and that's kind of important because if we're connecting to a religious theme, it's just being revealed to a select small group of people. So that hope isn't widespread yet, but it is definitive. He has revealed himself to a select group of people, whether he meant to or not, and I think that's pretty important.
Yeah. I would say I tried to go back and watch this episode with commentary on. And then, because I have the Blu-rays, I have a negative review on the Blu-rays because they don't have commentary on each episode.
They only
used to
provide it
have-
for a handful of episodes in the DVD or the Blu-ray, right?
Really?
I don't think they
I
have
I
full
remember-
commentary anywhere, do they? I could be wrong.
I remember watching the DVD like several times with just the commentary on for like every episode.
That's crazy.
Maybe I'm not remembering that right, but I think I remember there being commentary on like every single episode.
I don't.
But I gave my DVDs away to someone because I was like, oh, I got the Blu-rays now,
give
and
me
here I'll
Grinches.
share the love of Avatar.
Give me Gwinches, didn't you?
No, I gave it to a setter.
No, okay, that's fine. His kids will probably eat it up. His kids are
Yeah,
super
no, his-
duper intelligent. They're like 5.
Yeah.
They're probably talking about it the same way that we're talking about it right now, and they're probably 5 years old or something.
Yeah, I caught up with them. He said they were really liking it, so that's good. That warms my Avatar heart. I will take that sacrifice that I can't listen to the commentary.
My cheap. So I remember looking up on I just got like the cheap way after market DVD set, and I remember that like the pilot episode. I think I can watch that, the real pilot, but I think even on this set that not all the commentary was available. It's only a handful of episodes.
Mm,
So not that necessarily means it's the only ones they've done, but I don't have access to
yeah.
all of them, I don't think.
I mean, granted, I can't complain. Like the DVDs I had, they were bootleg. Because because I got them in college and I was broke, and someone just said, "Hey, you want these copies of Avatar?" And I said, "Yeah, that's one of the greatest shows of all time."
Well, they were probably
And then I
bootlegged
told myself,
off the actual like the nice volume
"Yes,
book ones. Yeah,
yes,
they're the
yeah." They
quality
copied them.
bootlegs.
They straight up just copied it to another disc. And I kept telling myself, like, "All right, one day I'll buy it, but I'll wait until it's on Blu-ray." And finally, like 10 years later, finally came out on Blu-ray. I think to punish myself, I bought The Last Airbender on DVD.
To like sort of reconcile. But you know what?
Yeah.
That's like the happiest story of a bootleg where you liked it so much that you did go purchase it. Like, that's the good side. You didn't just like hoard it and then just never pay for it. So see, whatever. It's all right.
Yeah. And I bought every season of Korra, even before that. And I have like two statues. I've given probably about 300, yeah, maybe close to $300 on Avatar stuff.
But did you give it to used markets? Because when you spend money at vintage stock, like that's not going to Nickelodeon. You don't get
No,
to let that write
no,
off your conscience.
no, no. I bought the Korra Blu-rays like first day they came out at
Okay.
Target.
All right, that's legit. That's fine. There's there's a spider over there, and if I could be an airbender, like now would be the time because there's a spider crawling up my wall, and I just
Although if you were an air nomad, you wouldn't take life.
I would
All life is
be a
precious.
new. I would probably be banned from the Air Nation because I hate spiders. That would not work well. Anyway, off topic. Long story short, this is an amazing scene. It is the most exciting
God.
scene that happened so far because it's extremely revealing on a number of different levels for Aang, for the whole world, and it's extremely well animated through and through. It's very detailed, probably to the point we haven't seen. So, excellent scene. I highly recommend you watch it. And then that leads back to the Agni Kai. Maybe still in combat, or maybe it's finishing up. I really don't remember.
Yeah, but so in this Agni Kai, it's a pretty short fight, and also their firebending really isn't that spectacular. I don't think, especially compared to firebending. See, the fighting coordination, I think is great. I mean, they actually use real life techniques. I believe firebending is based off of Northern Shaolin. I believe so.
I'll nod my head in agreement. I have no. That sounds great.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome. So all four you mentioned
And
all four nations have a unique fighting style that does resemble
yes,
something real.
yes, waterbending is based off of Tai Chi.
That makes
Airbending is
sense.
based off of Bagua,
No idea what that
and
is.
earthbending is based off of tiger crane style.
It's not based off of WrestleMania because that's one of the earlier entries in the Earthbending series. Great episode. Oh,
That's
I
true.
can't
No,
wait
it's
for
not.
that episode. Speaking of WrestleMania, the one thing I didn't want to lose from this episode is that so ZHAO is winning very clearly, and Iroh's yelling at Zuko and trying to give him advice and stuff. He's backseat driving, and then Zuko is like on the ground, he's about to get pummeled,
Oh
and then he
yeah.
does. This is the only thing from the one that I couldn't publish because the bad audio. I was like, I gotta remember this because I love talking about it. Is he straight up does like a Booker T spinneroonie to kick himself up off
Yes.
the ground and sweep Commander Zhao all at the same time. I watched it a couple of times. It's like that's dead on spinneroonie. Like the guys that animated this are like, we got to work Booker T in here somewhere. Huge wrestling fans apparently. And then, but the important part of that is the tide turns extremely quickly. Zuko's about to get pummeled, does the spinneroonie, sweeps Zhao, and from that point on, just exact opposite. Turns very quickly, and it is a quick fight, but it also is very exciting. It's like a teaser for exciting, better firebending to come.
Yeah, he definitely gets the upper hand. At one point, he can deliver the final death blow, and Zhao's on the floor, and he says, "Do it!" And then Zuko, of course, like fires a fire blast at him, but it just goes to the side of him. And then Zhao says, "Your father raised a coward," which is, of course, like the jerky thing to
That's
say
exactly
at
what a
that point. He
bully
just
would
lost.
say.
Just take the L.
He's so ungracious. I can't remember if it's in this one or if it's in a similar one. Is it later when we actually see them walking away and ZHAO trying to attack Zuko from behind? I think that's
Yes,
still this
yeah,
scene here. Yeah.
yeah, right after that, pretty much Zuko says, "You get my way again, and then I won't be so merciful." And then at that point, Zhao attacks from behind, like with a huge fire blast, and Iroh just catches the foot and just pushes it, like
Right. There's
just
fire
very
coming out of this foot
disrespectfully.
about to hit Zuko from behind. Like
Yes,
he's already in firebend mode. And then you just see this scene of like Iroh just standing like left to
yeah. Oh,
right,
it's
just got him by the foot. And he's like a foot and a half shorter than Zhao and just flicks him across the room. And it's very
yeah,
endearing because then you start to just get a glimpse of Iroh's watching this whole time, cheering him on, trying to be a good sport, cheering on his nephew, helping him grow as a firebender. But he doesn't have any credibility yet until that scene when you're like, oh wait, yeah, he could probably. We're given the impression that he's probably a little more powerful than his tea drinking self likes to let on.
yeah.
I got to
Yeah,
keep my
before
eye on
that, you
that
just think,
spire
oh,
so I don't lose him when we're
he's
done.
fat and he likes to drink tea. Like that's going to be what he is throughout the rest of the season. With some comedic relief, comedic relief. But yeah, he just shows like, and that happens a lot in firebending. Like when someone fights you without using their firebending, it's really disrespectful. Like
Also,
certain
probably good
characters
to
do
point.
it.
Also, probably good to point out that he's letting Zuko fight his own battles. You know, it becomes apparent that he could have jumped in and resolved the conflict, but uh, he has faith in Zuko that he can do it himself. He's letting Zuko fight that battle.
Mhm.
Um, Very important moment. And then, so after he does that, and he
Uh,
says, "I hope I get it right. Even in even in exile, my nephew is more honorable than you will ever be. Thanks for the tea." And then
yeah,
they leave,
yeah.
and Zuko says, "Uncle, did you really
Pretty much
mean
the tea
that?
was
It's
lovely.
very touching. It's very beautiful." And Iroh says, "Of course I did. I forget what kind of tea it is. Because I love this kind of
Jasmine
tea.
tea,
Jasmine? Is it jasmine? I love jasmine tea."
I think so.
And then it just cuts away. Like you don't get to see any reaction to that or anything, or like there's no Zuko eye roll or anything like that. You just eye roll, coincidence. But then it's just gone, and it's a very beautiful moment. It's beautiful and it's comedy and it's a very powerful sequence for Iroh, all in like it's 3 or 4 seconds. Like you get all of Iroh. He's done developing. You see everything right there. But no, it's a really cool sequence that shares a lot about who he is and why you're really gonna like him. And if you don't like him, then you probably shouldn't watch the show. Such a great character. But all right, so anyway, that is a great scene too. That side story, not my favorite. I mentioned, or that side of the story, not my favorite. Just feels like it doesn't really lead to much, and it is a lot of dialogue. But you do, like I said, right there at the end, it is pretty exciting fight, even if it's short. You learn a lot about Iroh, and then it does spark a rivalry between the two going forward too. So it doesn't just end there. Unfortunately we have to see Zhao more.
Yeah. And then our next scene, Aang is just really mad. And this is a great frame, by the way, of Aang in the Avatar state. Like his eyes
Kind of
glowing, the
spooky.
arrows, tattoos are glowing. Like he looks otherworldly in this frame. Like he looks like he's uncontrollable, just raw power happening.
He's
And then
seriously
Kataro's the
displaying
one.
some bipolar disorder here compared to normal Aang that we're used
Yeah.
to.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah. That's interesting. It's a clear
It's
dichotomy there.
otherworldly
Um,
bipolarism.
hmm and then Katara is just talking him down, like, yeah, the Airbenders are gone, but we're your family. Me and Sokka, we're your family now. And that really, that really brings Aang down to earth. And we see later that really she is his anchor to this world. Like she is kind of the reason that he lives, the reason that the reason that he doesn't go off, and she controls him.
And then what we were getting at earlier when we were talking about the air nomads, not necessarily having traditional families, and to be a true airbender, you have to let go of these worldly tethers like a traditional family or whatever. And so it is
Hmm
important to note that Katara and Sokka are straight out coming out and sort of professing themselves to be his family, and they are tying him down. They're like, it's very blatant, it's very clear in the wording, and we don't know as much about this storyline yet until we get to that episode later. Would you say that was
Yeah.
early third season?
That is the book season. That is the episode titled "The Guru." It is like episode 17 or 18 of season two.
And so it's pretty
And that,
heavy-handed in that sense, where it's like you have to let go of your earthly
yeah,
tethers and your earthly feelings, or what, I don't remember how he says it. But then, I mean, Katara is the issue for him, and that is his family. And it's just kind of a neat tie into the conversation we had earlier about air nomads having non-traditional families.
yeah, which I really love. Way in the finale, where I won't ruin that, but a certain person tells Aang that he's the Avatar, that he can't necessarily live um, off of the teachings of the air nomads, because since he's the Avatar, he has to connect to the world. That's almost the point of it, is that he is the good spirit. He's the whole bridge between the two worlds. He can't be that if he detaches himself from the world.
Man, spoiler alert! I forgot all about that. Gosh, yeah, I really did forget about that, and it's not registering with me at all. I have no memory, so now I'm looking forward to like hearing that because I had not made that connection. Good point. Hey, fake, real quick commercial break. I didn't have a good commercial video this week. I just found this toy that's like a creepy mask of Aang, and this little, it's like a water gun that straps to your wrist. And I wanted so bad to find like a cheesy, terrible commercial about it and stuff, and I couldn't. But I liked how creepy the mask was, and then all the Amazon reviews are like, "Yeah, the mask is really heavy and creepy, and the thing doesn't conform to your arm, and it doesn't work at all." And then I thought, well, I should buy one and record my own commercial. But when I looked on eBay, there was one that was like $15, and it was broken, and it was just the arm piece. And there was one that was brand new for $100, and I didn't want to do that because
Yeah.
no. But point is, there's some creepy, creepy toys out there from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Some of them, I'm going to guess, the licensure on those may have been loosely monitored.
Yeah.
Nickelodeon licensed a lot of stuff, and Viacom.
Yeah, they did.
So
I will say the last commercial was great. I really want that Appa. I'm right now. I'm watching something on eBay. There's an Appa for sale for like $4 right now is the bid, but it's all the way in China. So sometimes I don't like buying stuff off of eBay from China.
you forget that it's
Sometimes they don't.
coming, and then it shows up on your doorstep one day, and you're like,
Yeah,
"Oh yeah."
but all the other ones are like $100. So no one go out there and bid on it. Just let me try and bid on it.
Chris,
You
all
know,
four of our
I'll put it
listeners
up
going to
there.
try to outbid you. This was a terrible place to talk about that.
But I had a great find. I go to vintage stock all the time, and I found this nice ZUKO toy here, which is I really love it actually. It
It's
has
kind of
great
cool.
articulation.
It is
He
highly
has the helmet and
detailed.
everything.
Does the helmet detach?
Like, and it has mixed material. Yeah, helmet detaches.
Nice. This is
Um,
very detailed.
it has really great articulation. You can move them into different positions. Like it has, like moving pieces on the ankle, the knee, the thighs. It's well, now we're getting into a toy review here, but it's really like compared to the 20, and I got it for $2,
I
and it came
dream.
with it came with two other action figures that were like, all right, fine, I'll take them. One was a Green Arrow, and one was Doctor Fate. I like
Vintage
both those
stock, you
characters, but
losing money. Vintage stock.
yeah,
Someday, all right, so I dream of having listeners someday that aren't just people we know that live in other places. So, vintage stock in Colorado, it's called Entertain Mart. Certain places, it's called Movie Trading Company. Kansas and most of Missouri, it is called
in Oklahoma.
Vintage Stock in Oklahoma. And I was thinking there was one more. Entertain Mart's my favorite because I like puns. And I went to Colorado Springs. I went to an Entertain Mart. Easily the biggest vintage stock I have ever seen. They had Sega Game Gear games just running out of boxes, which all of them have Sega Game Gear, and nobody wants to buy Sega Game Gear stuff. But like nothing, just overflowing boxes of Sega Game Gear games. And then I wasted like an hour looking through them, realizing it was just a bunch of copies of the same two games. But anyway, vintage stock, known as many things, they dabble in everything: video games, comics, trading cards, toys, music, movies, posters. They dabble in everything. So cool store. The prices are okay. They have good deals sometimes. Go on a holiday
Yeah.
weekend. Go on a holiday
Yeah.
weekend.
Oh yes, holiday weekend. That's the time I always shop because you get like a buy two get one free type of deal.
So if you had
And
bought
they
those
send good
toys on a
coupons
holiday
too.
weekend, you could have had so many more
Oh
toys.
gosh,
I
yeah.
also dream of a time when we can review. Like, I would love to. So the video games for Avatar: The Last Airbender are by and large, garbage. Spoiler alert.
Mhm.
But I still would like to play them someday and put together a semi-formal review. I think that would be fun. So that's the end of our not quite a commercial break. Someday we'll
Mhm.
get like real. Somebody will come to us with something exciting to actually
Yeah,
show off rather than just toys we want to buy.
like
So
Audible, like all those other YouTube people get Audible and I don't know something else.
some of them are really strange, but it still makes me jealous. Like when these other YouTubers will get gifts from people they don't know. And I'm like, that's the weirdest form of stalking where you see a video of somebody and you send them a gift with expectations that they're going to open it on the next video. That's a very weird kind of stalking, but I'm also super jealous. So that's why I'm being angry. It's coming from a place of jealousy.
Hmm.
Someday, right? Somebody send me an avatar toy. Anyway, getting to the ratings. Uh, so we are going to attempt to rate episodes, going to try to keep it consistent in the way that we do it. So at the end, we can look back and kind of find out what our favorite episodes and our least favorite episodes were. And so the first category is audiovisual, which we'll talk my ratings first. Audiovisual being everything you see, everything you hear, sound effects, color palettes, animation, music, all that stuff. This episode, I loved audio visually. I guess I got to click over here. Huh? I loved the audio visuals on this episode. I gave it a 9. And audio visual is also very important to me because it's a cartoon, so I like to see bright colors and hear exciting music. This one had a lot of different color palettes in the first couple episodes. We got to see there was some water, some blue color palette still. There's lots of Fire Nation red inside the ship. The air temple and the flashback, of course, were the most exciting. I like vibrant, loud colors. And then we also got a lot of exciting music, both music and sound effects during the Avatar state and during the AGNI Kai. There was just finally got some real fuller music than we'd had in either of the other episodes. So then story, there's not a ton of story here. There's nothing that really that drives anything forward. It's not important. Like I mentioned before, it's not quite exhibition. It's more revelatory than that. It's more important than that. But it's still, neither of these really stands alone as more than just sort of foundation builders. So it's fine. It's 7. They're both thorough and they both culminate very nicely at the end. You get the good fight and the good avatar state. That's probably the most positive part I can take away from this. They both culminate very nicely at the end and concurrently, and that gives you a lot of good closure. And so a lot of good information. Okay story. Give it a 7. And then I found it very memorable. I gave it a 9 on memorable because you do get, probably because of so many of those revelations where you see the first avatar state, you get this first great firebending fight, you see the first air temple, and that kind of opens your mind to the possibilities of what air nomad life is like. And then you get the flashback too. There's so many individual pieces here that build the foundation of how I remember Avatar being the first time I watched it through. So I found it extremely memorable. And then I give that a 30% weight because in my mind, it's being memorable is kind of what makes me want to talk about it more and more. It's the type of stuff that sticks with me forever. So that's why I gave that a 30%. All pretty even weights, not terribly exciting. That leads to a nice round 8. It's an okay, good, maybe slightly above average episode. We said last time an 8 here. An 8 here is probably a 10 somewhere else. It's still a very good episode. But as we get farther and farther in, we're going to have a lot more exciting episodes, particularly in the story department. So nice round 8, nothing wrong with it. Nothing I would ever call out to anybody else in particular, I don't think.
All right, so for audiovisual for me, I think the episode is good. I can't see my score
You gave
here, but
7.5 and you rate it, you weigh that at 35%.
35. Yeah, so 7.5. Yeah, there wasn't. I mean, I absolutely love when he goes into Avatar state, just that one little frame of his eyes glowing, and then just the eyes glowing of every single Avatar. It just like that circling of do 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 do. Like you can kind of just hear a doot in your head, even like it's something in your head, even though there's nothing. I don't think.
Light it up.
There's nothing. Yeah, yeah. And it just really emphasizes the lineage that the Avatar has. I like the fight, even though I mean, I guess audiovisually the fight wasn't that impressive, but I still like the colors there. But it wasn't.
You
I don't
find to
think
see a lot of
this episode
dynamic
wasn't.
colors in there.
Yeah, I don't think this episode was as impressive as the last one. So 7.5 on the audiovisual. When it comes to story, I gave it
That's an
a
8.5.
8.5. Okay, I gave it 8.5 because I think we learned. Sorry, I can't. Yeah,
We gave these scores last week. It's been a while.
yeah. So gave it 8.5. That's because the exposition was done really well in this episode, and we learned a lot of backstory about Zuko. We learned a little bit more about Aang, and then we're introduced to a new antagonist. So I think it was really just those things driving it that took me to 8.5 on the story. And then for memorable, what did I give?
That's
So
an
there's 15%
8.5
weight.
there, and you weighted at 15.
8.5. This one, yeah. This one I gave an 8.5 because this is the episode that hooked me to watch more. Like that Aang, I meant that Aang going to Avatar State reminded me of like characters in Dragon Ball Z going Super Saiyan. Like, because in Dragon Ball Z, a lot of times, the more mad you get, the more powerful you get. So I really enjoy that aspect of it. And then the Zuko versus Admiral Zhao fight, I think was done really well. And it was just done really well. So I give that an 8.5. So which gives me
we definitely both on the memorable. I'm going to speak for both of us and say that the Avatar State, that first Avatar State, is kind of like in your head when you think of the origin of Avatar, or you think of your origins with Avatar. Like, I might think of that scene before I think of the first episode. It just is such a cool, fulfilling, gratifying scene. Sorry to interrupt there. You gave your total, rounded out, weighted to a nice 8, which obviously our average was an 8, so that's good. Kind of came out thinking similarly, which again in the end I think just exemplifies it. It is a good episode. It's very gratifying. There's a lot of good things coming out of it. But as we get farther in, there's going to be certain episodes that just feel way more exciting. The type of episode, this is not the type of episode that you would try to win somebody over to Avatar with just because of the two stories and the kind of slower narratives. But those are going to show up, and I think it's going to be evident in our scores when they do. So this is a good episode. Nothing wrong with it. Just a little bit different structure of an episode, I think. Any other? You looked like you were looking real close at the score there. That's an 8. Can you see it? He's for the record. He's on his phone, and his camera on his phone is better than my webcam camera. So, Chris, any other scoring thoughts?
No, I was looking at how long we've been recording.
We've been talking quite a while. It's whatever.
Yeah, it's okay. And the thing about this episode is that, I mean, because it's so back and forth between the two, that there's kind of a lot happens in all those small little scenes, when usually I feel like it goes back and forth half that time. So you can sort of summarize what's happening in the scene a lot quicker. So I don't think all of our episodes will be this long, because
I don't either.
Our pilot was about this long.
There are going to be other episodes too where in most episodes you see both sides. Like in most episodes you're going to get some Zuko and Iroh, and then you're going to get some Team Aang, Team Avatar. But usually they're weighted much more heavily. Like, we won't be telling two stories. You're going to be telling one story with some cutaways or with some thought or an individual scene from the other side. So I think so too. Yeah. And we also talked a really long time in the Avatar State.
Yeah, we did. And a lot of times TV shows do like an A plot and they do a B plot. Avatar doesn't do that all that often. Like, most of the time the characters are interacting with each other. And so if you do have two separate plots, I feel like they're equally important. And most of the time is to draw the parallel between Aang and Zuko. Like the episode, The Storm, that's a clear parallel between Zuko and Aang. And there's a couple episodes that parallels the two. That tends to be the only time where there's kind of a A and a sub-A plot.
Yeah, I think most of the time it really just feels very predominantly A, with something on the order of cutaways or snippets of some development somewhere along the line. So not even, like you said, not really even an A and a B. It just, but there's also a lot of, I don't want to sell it short either. There's a lot of dynamic episodes that shake things up and do things different. and some of them I hate, but most of them I love. So, yeah, overall, great episode, very revealing. Like I said, if there is a theme here in this episode, got to be revelation, um, just because so
Mm.
many foundational pieces of the puzzle fall into place. But good episode. Pretty excited about next week's episode, which last week I screwed up and said I thought was this week, but it's not. It's next week that I really like, because if there's one time where you sort of like can pinpoint my sympathy for Sokka starting to grow, it's next week. So pretty excited to talk about that one. Anyway, thanks for calling over, Chris. It was nice to
Yep.
talk to you about this episode. Very exciting episode. This week I'm going to Expo this weekend. Geekcraft Expo in St. Louis to peddle my wife's quilts, or show people pictures of them actually. So if you have any handmade geeky needs, any Etsy needs in the nerd world, you have to shoot me a text or something, and I will make sure that I do the best I can. So hopefully I get to editing this quick and get it posted as soon as possible, and then next week we will do episode 4.